myself as a maker. A maker is a more active sense to me than an artist. I use my hands. I love the tactility of cutting and ripping.
Somewhere along the way, I had a desire to go back into my earlier painting and photographic roots, and collage seemed like the perfect medium to do that.
So I was really forced to really expand my materials, and so I started using collage.
Thinking about collage in the way how memory is sort of like dismantled, and so I'm trying to bring the pieces back together.
My content generally is inspired by activism movements throughout generations. And a lot of the ways I can get at that content is by using mediums that reflect protest histories. Oftentimes, if you look at collage, for example, collage has a history of resistance movements.
The main source material came from more so fashion magazines like Vanity Fair and Vogue, because the original idea was I would look at magazines, and there was a certain point where I would realize that there was kind of a scarcity in the way that they would utilize Black models.
I was in art education for 13 years. So part of my practice is influenced by that career path because, being in an art class, students at the end of the year, students would throw away all of this amazing work. So I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep this and kind of mosaic it, cut it up, keep it as source material, glitter, things that you will find in an art classroom.
I think it was around in 2012 where my work took a shift. I was focusing on making ceramic sculptures, and I had more time to play. I was scanning images into the computer, printing them out, and picking at them, and that's when I sort of discovered the picotage technique.
And so collage came out of wanting to bring everyday life into the art practice. But the through line in my work is always archives, bodies, and conversations. And they always come back to the remnants of the archive, whether that's an embodied archive or that's a physical archive, a tangible archive. And so collaging for me felt like a natural way to mix bodies and archives.
Every one of these gardens is literally cut from individual leaves almost, small sections, bushes. Trying to make a piece that's 8 feet tall would take a while if I'm putting it together by every blade of grass.
That's just part of hip hop culture, this concept of sampling with quilting, this process of sampling and using source materials, found objects with the gumbos, and how we cook. I began to understand myself as a part of this expansive vernacular of art making within the Black community.
Developing that over a number of years has given me the opportunity to make the works that I'm able to make now. It's small holes or punctures within a surface, and I felt like picotage was the best thing to describe the work because I'm physically picking into the surface of these photographs.
I think the most beautiful part about being a creative person is you don't have all the answers when you walk in. You don't have any answers actually at all when you walk in the studio. If you do, then it's too formulaic. You haven't really faced the unknown. I don't anticipate to know anything. I'm not bringing my ego in and projecting upon things. Even what I do know, I try to suspend. I oftentimes work in collaboration with librarians, and then they help me find images or articles that are in special collections that are dedicated to civil rights or what is considered revolutionary archives. And so when I go in, I'm looking really for the unknown. I'm solving a mystery of what happened prior. How did we get here? And where could we potentially go?
Once my work is out of the studio, I don't necessarily have control on how people react. Anybody out there is bringing their own baggage, their own experiences to that reaction. So yeah, I very much love working with my identity and identity politics, but sometimes I just want to make some art. I just want to get in the studio and make something and see if it's going to work out.
So I went from acrylic paint to adding the collage paper, then it will be adding stones, and then adding, so it's just this process of layering, and it's a very intuitive process, right? So like I have the scraps of paper on the floor, and these pieces will eventually find their way into my works. Old jewelry pieces, bra straps, you know, just things that are laying around, they'll find their way in the work. And it's me essentially listening to the painting, like, what do you need? And just kind of like feeding the idea.
I kind of have an idea, never know what it's gonna look like. Sometimes these works takes like a year to be completed, and that's whenever they're most difficult. Once I stop picking on the surface of one work, it takes a while to get back into that rhythm and that mindset of like where I left off. It's like eating leftovers like a week later. It's a process, so I'm looking and I'm feeling the works, you know? And like I'll get home and I'll look and I'm like, I get back, I'm like, oh, this is completely different than what I expected.